Waveline, presented by Ocean Lending. Thanks for tuning into the Waveline. I'm James Edwards, CEO of Ocean Lending. I'm here with Mike Miller, one of our top loan originators. Mike, thanks for coming on board today and sharing some time and some stories with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, getting right into it, I want to first talk about TRVs, or tax return verification. A lot of people don't understand the term TRV. It's more of a mortgage lingo type of thing. And when we say it, the borrower's like, huh? Oh, what's that? And there's a reason why we need to verify the tax returns that are submitted. So back in 2006, 2007, when there was so many of these subprime loans going around, and even a paper conforming loans, they would take your tax returns and they would, it's almost like back in the day, they would just trust what you said without verifying it. Well, borrowers got keen to that, and there was CPAs and people that knew how to do taxes, and they said, well, what number do you need? And so they started just giving you tax returns that looked great, for getting qualified for a loan, and they get loans. Well, then they were starting to check in on these things and getting these tax return verifications and noticing that these summaries from the IRS didn't match up with the taxes that were provided. So now it's, and you would think that they would have figured it out long before, 2006 to make it mandatory. And there was a lot of investors that did require it, but it's now just a requirement for the most part that you have to verify any money that you are claiming that you make. You either have a loan that's insured by the government with FHA, or guaranteed by the government with a VA loan, or it's backed, even though it's a private corporation with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, but their biggest investor is the United States. So they want to verify where this money is coming from.
Sure.
So I want to talk about, I know that we've had some experiences, you've had some experiences, I've had some experiences as well, with borrowers that, first of all, they ask why, and, we pretty much went over that. But then a lot of times people will do their taxes and then they owe money, right? So since we're in the topic of taxes, tell us about your story. You had, it was a lady or a man or a couple?
Yeah, I had a single mom. She was purchasing her first home, and she got audited. So we asked borrowers to provide us last 2 years tax return.
Right.
So 2019, 2020.
Right.
And those two tax returns don't show any tax liability, because in the last 2 years, she hasn't owed any taxes. However, she was audited from her 2016 and 17 and 15 returns, I believe, and they came to an agreement. She had a tax liability of roughly $50,000 for those 3 years. It's about $15,000 a year.
Serious amount of money.
Yeah, it's a lot exactly. It's a big debt, but she arranged a payment arrangement with the IRS.
Right. But
this was a recent occurrence. So this happened just before she started to look for a home. She had her down payment saved. She's ready to go.
Now, was she making payments on this debt?
She had made one payment.
Okay.
So she had made one payment. She had a agreed upon repayment plan with a set amount. But that was a recent event. So this was an old tax liability that she was, quote unquote, I wouldn't say she was necessarily delinquent, but she, in that term, she is delinquent because she had not paid in full.
It was
when
past
it's
due. Yeah, it's not like she filed her taxes on time and set up the payment plan, has been paying from the beginning. Correct. Yeah.
So, we looked into it with the underwriters. It was something that she was, our relationship was one that was, hey, tell me everything that you think might be a hindrance, because we don't want to get into an escrow period or finally get you a house, especially in this market. She lost probably 2 or 3 houses in the bidding war. And so once she finally acquired one, we didn't want to have a hiccup. And so she let me know, hey, I have this tax liability. It doesn't show anywhere. If she had not let me know that, we would have found out during the escrow process because of the verifications, the 4506Ds.
Yep.
Yeah. So, it's one of those situations where, thank God, she was upfront with me. She shared that with me. Hey, I have this tax liability. Then we were able to take that, go on the IRS website, get her liability, get her payment plan, go to the underwriter and say, hey, how does this work? Does she need to pay this entire tax liability off in order to qualify for an FHA loan for the loan that she's doing? And his answer was no, not if she doesn't want to. The guideline, the underwriting guideline for that specific situation was she has to have made 3 monthly payments in a row.
Right.
One of the nice things is she
establish a payment history.
Correct. Yeah. And then we can take that monthly payment and add it to her debt to income ratio as a liability, just like a car payment or a credit card payment, anything. One of the really nice things is we're looking to get a home in a 30-day escrow. So we start to do some math. We go, okay, well, why don't you make your second payment and then start making offers on homes? Because by the time we're set to close, you're going to have made that third payment. So that's what she did. She made her second payment. So we're 2 payments in to meet the requirement. She's got a pre-approval letter. She's going out. She's shopping. She lost a couple homes. Finally, she got one under contract. And she was so excited to get it under contract. I mean, this is a single mom this is her first home. She got 2 kids, an 18-year-old.
I don't know how single mothers do it. I give it up to single mothers out there because
she's phenomenal.
My wife will go away for a business trip or something like that, leave me with 2 kids, and I'm sitting there going like, these people are doing this day in and day out, week after week, and they're raising these children. So my heart really does go out to single parents, mothers or fathers, whoever's stepping up to the plate.
It was a great experience, especially to see her get the house under contract. So once she gets it under contract and she makes that third payment while we're in escrow, then the underwriter clears it because, hey, that's part of it. It's part of her tax, debt to income ratio. And we move forward, close on the house, and she's been living in the house now 6-7 months.
Oh man, that's a great story.
Yeah, she's thrilled. But it was an eye opener because at the time her real estate agent he was not aware of the tax liability. Right. And this is where you run into some shaky ground because we all want transparency. Correct. But there's some private matters that maybe the borrower doesn't want to share with their real estate agent or even the sellers of the property. It's really none of their business. It's about whether or not the loan is going to close.
Right. And so that's when it's their business.
Yes.
If it doesn't close, well, why not? Exactly. Now everybody knows. Yeah.
So, we had a good powwow and we were able to actually, bring it out and say, hey, we had to ask for a small extension in order to meet that 3-month guideline. Right. And so at that moment she shared it with them. Right. But it came out in a good way. Like, hey, here's the guideline. We're going to close. The loan is going to fund. Everything's fine. We need literally an 8-day extension. So that way we move in to the following month and everything was golden.
Like I say too, transparency is key. You got to close of escrow. You need to go a little bit longer. Realtors hate that, first of all. Yes. But if we all know why and we know what the fix is, then we can all be adults about it. And usually there's common ground to be had, and then we can figure it out from there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a really cool learning experience, especially with the underwriter. And I mean, when you hear you got a $50,000 tax liability, it's a scary thing. You think, oh, I can't buy a home, but it's not $50,000. It's just like a credit card bill that's $50,000. What is that payment? And how does that affect my debt to income ratio?
The obligation, the monthly obligation. I had a similar story. I'll never forget it. It's one of my first very large IRS debts that the guy called me. He wanted to qualify for a rate, and after about 30 minutes of talking to him, it finally kind of came out, well, I owe some money to the IRS. And I said, well, how much money do you owe?
Some money.
Yeah, because this guy, he's very well off. I mean, he's owned a couple of different businesses. He had $1 million house. He only owed like $500,000 on his house too. So I say only, but a lot of people might think that's a lot, but compared relatively to his value of his house. Sure. And I said, okay, well, how much money do you owe to the IRS? And he said, well, it's kind of like $150,000. And I said, oh, and he goes, I just filed my taxes. It's for my last 2 years because I didn't file my taxes for the previous year. Now I know it's, $100,000 for this year and $50,000 for last year. And he goes, well, can I still get this rate? And all they want to do is save some money so that he could help make those payments. I go, well, how about this? I don't know if you ever thought about this, but you're going to pay this money back, right? And you're not going to run from this money or this debt. And he said, no. So I said, what's the payment on that a month? And he said, it's $10,000. I go, well, here's my fix. Why don't we take a $650,000 loan out and give you cash out? And how about I save you $10,000 a month? Now the money that you owe to the IRS is actually a tax write-off because you get to write the interest on your house. So isn't that ironic? The money that you owed the IRS, they're now going to give you a discount for actually having that that debt, and now you're going to get a write-off for it. So he thought that was funny. We had a quick laugh about that, and then so from that point forward, he's been my guy, or I've been his guy, I should say. But it was a great experience, and it's just like one of those things where you think, wow, the whole thing just changed like that.
Well, in most cases, too, your interest and penalties on the IRS debt is going to be more than the mortgage rates are right now.
Oh, bar none.
And when you're talking about
Easy.
amounts, 100, 150,000, which can happen very easily for a lot of the self-employed borrowers that we have who are running businesses and doing stuff, tax liabilities are not a foreign thing to them.
Right.
A lot of times they'll have it. And we've seen a uptick in that since COVID with, if a business's income went down,
right,
but they had a tax liability they usually paid off and they can't pay it off.
Right.
There's not a better way to do it than pull out money out of your home at the rates we're at currently.
Right. And that kind of brings me to, if you owe money, what should you do? Should you pay it off in full yourself? I mean, you can do that. Take all your nest egg out and pay all that money. Can you go on a payment plan? You most certainly can, like in your situation. You're going to have that monthly obligation that you're going to have to always be battling the IRS, and you're going to have to sleep at night knowing I got this additional debt. Or if you have equity and you're in a position where you can pay that debt off, what I was telling him, because he actually was saying, he made 2 payments on his, and he said, I can make this payment. I make a lot of money, whatever. So I said, well, how about this? What if you take that same amount of money and pay the $650,000 loan off? Because I think on a $650,000 loan, it was like 1.1 in total payback with all the interest and everything. And you're going to save yourself over $600,000 in interest because you're going to pay it off in like 5 years or something like that. It was something ridiculous. And he's like, that's a good idea. And I'm like, yeah, like let's make your money work smarter, not harder. If you can make that payment, let's keep doing it, and save all that money and get this thing paid off. And now you're looking at retirement. I mean, he was at the time 51 years old, and we'll have you set up for retirement at 56. Now you went from having a mortgage and this huge IRS debt to paying it off, and not only paying that off, but paying your mortgage off in the same amount of time. I'm sorry, in a much quicker time, but making the same amount of a payment per month.
Gosh, that's an awesome story.
Yeah, it was really cool. So when to file? File on time, right? Everyone wants an extension, especially talking about self-employed borrowers.
Yeah.
They try to string it out for as long as they can. I mean, talking about tax liability, they're trying to get as much of a write-off as possible as well, too. But if you can file on time, great. If you don't file on time, that doesn't mean that you don't qualify for a loan, because we can use your extension up until the time that the extension's good.
Yep.
Depending on if it's corporate tax returns or personal tax returns, we're going to have to go off that debt. Now, if it's, April 15th and you got till September 15th or October 15th, depending on corporate or personal, then you can still get a loan done using your previous 2 years and the extension. So don't think just because you file an extension and you didn't file on time that you don't qualify, because you still probably do qualify.
Yep.
And kind of one last little thing about self-employed people and filing taxes is, proving your income. They're going to go off of a 2-year average. They're going to add the previous year and the current year and divide it by 24 months. And they're going to want profit and loss to show if you're currently still making money. And that's going to be something that's going to be provided by your CPA, or if you do your own taxes, you can actually do it yourself. But, I mean, it is a legal binding document, and it is going to be reviewed by an underwriter to make sure that your income is there.
Sure, along with the usually a few months bank statements that shows that income average.
Right, and that's something that actually recently came up because of COVID.
Yeah.
So a lot of businesses got shut down, and they want to make sure that those businesses are still making money. So they're not just taking a profit and loss that's prepared by a CPA or self-prepared. They want to look at your bank statements and say, okay, well, show me that the money's being deposited as well.
Yep.
So, and we don't want to see a declining income in that, even though there's been a lot of great relief for people due to this pandemic, with COVID and the forbearance programs that are out there. They want to make sure that you still are getting money to make sure that your mortgage payments are going to be made. I mean, if you're borrowing money, you have to prove that you can pay it back.
Yeah, and that your business is picked back up. I mean, it's the really nice thing about going through the underwriting process with that is it's typically a common sense approach, at least here at Ocean Lending. I mean, when you say, hey, I own a bakery, and, during COVID we shut down, but now we've opened back up, and you're able to show bank statements that show March, April, May, June, July, August of 2021, where the income is steadily going up.
Right.
It totally makes sense. Hey, they owned a bakery shut down. It's a small business, and now everything's picking back up.
Right.
One of the loans I did, by the way.
And kind of looping this all back into the beginning of our conversation, these TRVs, they're needed to prove the income that you say that you file. Now, here's where it gets a little bit dicey, is that if those TRVs don't come back on time, because sometimes we're relying on a third-party service with the IRS, a lot of times we have to get the borrowers involved to request these themselves. What they can usually get them same day if it's the borrower, not a third party from us requesting from a separate third party. But if we can't prove your income, then we cannot take your loan to docs, even though you perfectly qualify. So a lot of times what we'll see is that people have errors on the address or their name on how they file their tax returns, and we have to get all that straightened out in order to get those. We try to get out ahead of it and order it correctly, but we just want to kind of tell the borrowers out there and all the listeners that there's a reason why they're needed, and if you don't get them, they can definitely affect you and your funding process.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I recently had one, worst case scenario, I think the IRS will mail them to you. It takes like 10 business days. But I had a loan where the husband and wife, they had a fraud alert with the IRS. So we couldn't pull it through the third-party system, and they couldn't pull it online. They had to call, wait on hold. Hold times right now a little longer.
Right.
But if you understand what it's going to take to get it, a lot of times it's not that big of a deal. They call, they wait 30, 40 minutes on hold. They talk to a rep. They say, I need to order it. There's some type of fraud guard that's on their account. And then the IRS mails them a certified copy, and we were able to use that. So
one of the stories, get out ahead of it.
Yeah.
Order it up front.
Yeah.
Get it in your possession. Don't let it hold up your funding, and get the loan that you deserve.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Well, hey, we went over quite a bit right there, and that was really good. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope all the listeners actually have a great day.
Absolutely.
For more information, please reach out to us at www.oceanlending.com.